forth if like, okay, if you're a God, then you can come down from these mountains because Satan took him up in the mountains, high up. He has access to his soul. He has access to Jesus' soul. He's in the flesh. Jesus is 100% born of God, the only begotten of God, spirit of spirit, right? But he comes into a sinful flesh. The sinful flesh is the actions where Satan can have activity connection to. He can constantly talk to it, constantly talk to the body, constantly talk to the body. And if the soul listens to the body, they become one and the same. And they will walk ways, sinful ways towards death. Okay, anyway, so Satan has access to Jesus because Jesus is inside a sinful body. Does that mean that he's a puppet master to Jesus? No. Why? Because, okay, here we go. Jesus is inside this this sinful body. Satan has access to a soul, which means he has access to access to suggest thoughts. Turn this rock into bread. Or if you are God, won't you, if you come down from off these mountains, whatever, the angels will bear you up and they won't allow your foot to dash against a stone. Lastly, he goes with this one. If you kneel to me, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the earth. I'll give you all of this in the physical realm. See, Jesus was 100% spirit, so he saw everything outside the bubble of the physical realm. There is a bubble that we live inside the physical realm. Jesus was the only one of God, born of God, that wasn't born in the same consciousness that we're born in. So he was made to be tempted by all manner of evil of the physical atmosphere. He was made specifically just for this. All right. So Satan has access to a soul. He's talking to him. He's trying to get him to cast a stone into bread. He's trying to get him, lower him down from off the mountains to prove himself. And then he offer him to if he kneels to him, surrender himself to him. Now, a person could say, like, well, then why is Satan having this access? Because Adam gave Satan this ability. He gave Satan this authority. Everything we read about Jesus is in the Bible. That's how Adam was. Adam was of the perfect will of God. Adam didn't know no sin. Jesus was the only one who died, who came back, based upon the Spirit of God. Adam didn't have the Spirit of God. He had the Spirit of God. But once he did what God told him not to do, he gave that spirit, that life, that authority over all of this physical dimension. He gave that over to Satan. Now, the significance of going, where we talked about this, touched on it earlier, about the breathalyzer, where Jesus offers the soul. Jesus give us like this breathalyzer, whatever you want to say. I said breathalyzer. Breathalyzer, that he actually stores or oxygen towards our soul, that it will come alive again. What I mean by that, coming alive, that it can reconnect back to love. If the spirit is away from God, not one and the same with his perfect will, the soul is going to follow the atmosphere of the physical realm, because that's all it's going to know. When Adam did what he did in the garden, and he took of the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, which was the tree that God told him not to, not to eat of, and he said, if you do, the moment that you do, you should surely die. He said the moment, but he said, when you do, you should surely die. When Adam did that, he died inside. He had the spirit of death inside of him. He died. He was lost. The first act that he did, he ran, right? When God came down, to come talk to him, to walk the cool of the day with him. Because this was what they normally would do. Adam ran and hid because he was afraid. So God said to Adam, where are you? Adam said, I ran because I was afraid, because I was naked. Adam never knew any atmosphere. He have never had any knowledge of the physical realm, or the physical atmosphere. He had no knowledge of it. All of a sudden, he gained instant access to it. Instant. But the physical atmosphere is not orchestrated by God. That's orchestrated by Satan. That's all. So predominantly what I'm saying is, what the average person actually sees is conducted by Satan. When you see a car, you don't see a chair that's floating. You see an engine, you see tires, you see all this. Satan has access to all that, but you're actually sitting in a chair that's moving. Person said, no, it has an engine because the chair can't move by itself. When you in a fear dimension, your cause and effect is fear-based. When you're in a faith dimension, there's no reason for a cause and effect, because there's no fear to doubt. So when we go in Satan's dimension, we have the cause and effect to fear and doubt. This is what makes him the ruler of it. That's why he can shift at any. That's why there's no stability with fear and doubt, because fear and doubt has torment. It has no free flow to stay consistent. It constantly interchange. It's unstable. It's like a chemical combustion. It's there's no way to stabilize it. That's why once we touch something that God tells us not to touch, it comes inside of our soul, and we become instantaneously unstable. There's no stability in Satan's kingdom. That's why there's no love in it. When love is in the atmosphere, love. If love is permitted into the soul or in the atmosphere, and a person goes into that atmosphere, they are automatically assured. There is no fear. There is no doubt. They don't even. It goes past the understanding of what stability is. Unless that you are in God's side of things, unless you can see it from God's side of things, you can't see the impact of how significant love is. Love goes beyond feelings. If love is reduced to feelings, that individual soul is stuck in fear. Love transcends the soul to such a dimension that it becomes a new creation. It becomes a new dimension. So when Jesus comes into a person's, like his spirit connects to another person, his spirit connects with a person's spirit. That person becomes a new creation. They become something that they never ever was. The limitations of them there is no limitations. Let me say it that way. There are no limitations. There are no boundaries for that person, because they are in a constant motion of balance. The only where there's instability within any soul is when fear is permitted. That means that soul went someplace where God himself, the Father, the Creator, is not there. When God says stay away from premarital sex, He's saying once you enter into that dimension is going to grant you so much instability that it will how can I say it? It can, let me see, what's the word I want to say? It can shapeshift into anything to appear to be good to the conscious. I mean, to the soul. It can appear. How can I say it like this? Take a person. Take a person who doesn't bathe, right? So the best way to look like you bathe is to wear something new. The best way to look like you're clean is to wear something new. Why? Because the new, or the newness of the clothes, gives a hologram that is clean because it has been freshly produced. But the filth or the uncleanness comes from the inside of the soul. So what's inside of the soul will triumph over the new clothes. So you take the person who has the new clothes and they go into an atmosphere, whatever, and all of a sudden they believe that they are the new clothes. They think they are the atmosphere of the new produced item. But they're not. Everybody else in the room can see it. They can see, we would say by smell, that's in the physical realm, but in the spiritual realm, we can see that you just wearing new clothes. That's not really who you are. If a person is stuck in a physical dimension, they will believe that the clothes and the person is one and the same. This is how we get tricked, because our soul, prior to meeting this situation, our soul was in some place where it shouldn't have been, because our spirit was in a disconnect from God's perfect will. And once our spirit is away from God's perfect will, we are broken away from stability, or we would call it truth. It's like being in a holographic. Yeah, there you go. Hologlyphic, like atmosphere. You don't know what is real, what's not real. When you get inside Satan's world, you don't know what is real and what's not real. What is true, what's not true. You don't know what is a lie, what is honest. You don't know nothing of that world. When Adam took of the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, he became confused. He don't know what is what. He don't know. He never known to be naked before, and all of a sudden he has a knowledge or an understanding that he is naked. He's confused. This is why the scripture says God has not given us the spirit of confusion. Or God is not the author of confusion. But that's why God didn't give us the spirit of fear, because the spirit of fear is going to chase the soul inside this circle of confusion. What is real and what's not real? What's good, what's not good? So you're constantly conflicted. There is no stability there. Once we're inside that world, how can you get out of there? How can you get out of that when you lay down and go to sleep? How can you get out of that? When you go take a vacation, how do you get out of that? When you have visions, how do you get out of that? When you sleepwalk, how do you get out of that? When you do whatever of existence, how do you get out of Satan's world? So that's why the importance of Jesus, what Jesus had to endure. What that person is experiencing in all those different dimensions is what Jesus purposely came down here for. That he can, because he was made to endure it, so he can take it away for good. That our soul doesn't have to experience that. All we have to do is do what the Father asks us to do. If the Father says stay away from premarital sex, it's because that's not God's atmosphere. Once you enter in, it's going to bring you torment. Once you enter in, you're going to go into a world that is going to be a world of confusion. Once you enter into this world, you're not going to know what's good and what's not good. You're not. It just, because God is not there. Jesus is not there to direct you. The only thing Jesus is going to do is going to come across your path like it will be settled in such a way like a burning bush, or or you will see something that's really odd of the picture, like that's unusual. It will get your attention, and that will, Jesus is trying to take you away from that atmosphere that your soul is in. Jesus did the work, giving us a gateway away from Satan having rule and authority over us. Adam was subject to him. Think about it like this. When Adam did what God told him not to do, he instantly became something he never was. How can he get out of that world? So God told him, Adam, the punishment was him that you will serve the dust of the ground all the days of your life. You're going to walk all this. You're going to walk in this atmosphere. You're going to walk it. This Satan's atmosphere. Satan's atmosphere. That wasn't God's original plan. But God knew what Lucifer was going to do from the beginning and everything else. So he had everything in plan, everything in place. So when Adam did what he did, it didn't catch God by surprise. However, his act didn't go without punishment. It gave him access to Satan. God is not really going to punish us. The things that we do wrong will put us in the punishment. God would just say what's going to happen. Like, say, for example, with Peter. When he told Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times, he wasn't saying like this, you don't have no choice. He's saying what's inside of you is going to lead you to deny me 3 times. Same thing goes for us. God doesn't have to punish us. If we're listening, if we're subjected to Satan's world, we're going to walk. The wages of sin is death. We're going to walk into trouble. Going back to this again. How does a person get this deliverance, whatever? The spirit has to reconnect to God's love. So like, take this message, for example, if it's resonating, if it's connecting to you, and you can see purity in it. Somehow, some way, whatever else, it makes sense to you, not in a physical form, not in an incomplete form, but in a perfection form. You're like, that answers this. It connects all the pieces. Therefore, this is the will of God. You have a choice then to follow this pathway. Not follow me, but you have those words is the voice of God. If it is connecting all those dots, you have a choice to follow that. Jesus is a spirit. He is the way, the truth, and the life. So if what I'm saying is of the Father, it will be away from the dimension, the atmosphere that you're in. And it will take you to another place where you can have a place of peace. That's Jesus came and he gave us this gateway, this great escape. That we don't have to live in the dimension of Satan's world. We don't have to have what he tells us that we have, that he tells us that we will have. We don't have to be sick. That's literally a choice. The reason why it's coming to the knowledge of Christ is because we're coming to the conscientiousness of where Christ is, how Christ thinks, why Christ did what he did. And it's not to know it for information or to have a deposit of knowledge. It's for deliverance. For God to reveal to any person that God chooses to reveal himself to, is to have them be delivered, separated from the wicked one. I thought that the information, the revelation I get from God, it was made just for me, to keep me out of harm's way. It's a twofold. It does that, but if the preacher doesn't preach, everybody else is going to be stuck in hell. And so what I thought was mine, the enemy will come take. Because when God gives it to a person, they don't have ownership to it. They are a dispensary. How can God trust you again with more if you didn't do with what you're supposed to do with the first measure that He given you the first place? This goes back to the good stewards of the Bible, where the talents. There was a steward that gave talents to five. I think 3 different people. 1, 2, and 5. I think 1, 3, and 5, or something like that. They gave them different talents and see what they're going to do with it. And the same thing goes with God. If we're asking God for an increase of Him, when He gave us what He gave us, we're supposed to be a dispensary, not having fear. If we let it go, we will be empty. But having faith, or having love, being one in love, we are a dispensary to send it out to the world, because ultimately it is God's will that goes through us, that it goes to another person to reconnect us all as a family. Remember, God is in the one business of getting us away from the enemy. He has one mission. Otherwise, there was no reason for Him to send His Son. For a person to get all heavy into saying like His Son doesn't exist, do you have a peace of mind? If you have a peace of mind, go ahead and tell me it's based upon some artificial substance or some form of meditation. All of that has a limitation. All of that has a limitation. It gives you a moment, even take a medication, whatever, it gives you a momentary hallucination or a holographic type deal where it convinces the soul that it's in a peaceful state. It can breathe. But it goes away in a matter of seconds. It goes away. Let me use this as an example. Marijuana or weed, whatever. A person said, like, I do this to stimulate my mind, to relax my mind, for the mind can be able to breathe from whatever the nuances or whatever trouble or situation that they're enduring. Let's say for the lack of peace in their mind. Well, then if that's the case, if that's the source of it, why does it go away from you? And you got to chase it. What I mean by that, you have to go get high again. If it's yours and it was made for you, you don't have to chase it because it don't leave you. If that marijuana is so good, if you did it one time, that high should sustain you just by thought alone. Just by your soul reconnecting to the thought of marijuana. It can't, because marijuana doesn't have life in it. Marijuana doesn't have love in it. It does not have peace in it. This is Satan's attempt to keep misery with him. If a person is seeking outside substance versus the creator of peace, they're going to get a temporary sensation, because it's not the creator of peace. It's not the creator of the freedom to breathe. It's not. It has no extension. I mean, It has no duration. The duration that we need, that our soul, our mind, our will, our emotion, our intellect, and our imagination needs, is an endless supply. You I'll give you this guarantee. If the soul, if the spirit becomes unbroken, which means to be reunited back with God, God's perfect will. Remember, Adam went outside God's perfect will. So we're trying to reconnect back to God's perfect will. So Jesus became the way, the truth, and the life of that. And we just discussed how he became that. Okay, so if our spirit reconnects to God's perfect will again, our soul can instantly breathe. The only time that the soul cannot breathe is when it listens to the flesh. That means Satan is talking to the body. Now, the soul sees the grass across the street as greener, and it goes somewhere it shouldn't go. It start to think, it start to meditate, start to partake, start to be involved in certain atmospheres that it's just not supposed to be. Going back to the point that we were saying earlier about the premarital sex, if God told us to stay away from that, God is saying, I'm not telling you that the feeling won't be a feeling. I'm saying that feeling is going to, God is saying, I'm saying to you that feeling is going to turn against you instantly. Your mind is going to be stuck in the hallucination of it, that you don't even see that it turned. And by the time that you come away from that hallucination, you come, as we would say, we come back down to the earth. And once you get back onto the earth, you're going to see the effects of how it turned. Now you're in a prison. You ever seen the tiger in a cage go, just walk back and forth, this kind of go? That's how you will be. Once you come down from this high. The high, God didn't give you that high. That's why, if the scripture says, when the scripture talks about stay away from strong drink, this is what he's saying. It's going to take you to an atmosphere where God himself is not there. God loves us so much, he don't want us to be in no place that he is not. But he gives us free will. Just like he gave free will to Lucifer. He gives us everybody free will to do what they want to do. You only have two choices. To follow God or not. There is no, I'm going to go across town. No, it's only two choices. Either you're going to follow the way that God is going, or you're not going to follow that way. There's only two choices. And the moment that we choose not to follow the way that God is going, I guarantee it goes like this. God gives you an assignment, you have the choice to choose to do the assignment or not. That lets you know if you're with God or not. And if you're not, you immediately go into another dimension. Like, that dimension is so unstable, it's so unpredictable. There's no way you can ever have peace. It will grant you the illusion of peace so you won't leave. And once you stay, fear comes to chase you. So now you're like on an endless run inside this dimension. So the only way you can get out is to have faith. Now you're going to have to face fear. But fear had probably become so large, it's almost impossible to believe that there could be another world without it. So a person comes with Jesus and say, Jesus can give you a way of an escape. Then you have heard fear so much, Jesus is not even real. Remember, Jesus is a spirit. The world that you live in is a spiritual world. And if that world God is not in, if that world God is not around or not involved with, you are in torment. There is no stability. This is the world that Adam became. When God told Adam to stay away from the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, He told him to stay away from this world. A person may say, like, why didn't God tell him that? Why should God have to tell you anything? You don't have any knowledge of death. You don't have any knowledge of fear. God shouldn't have to warn you. All you know is love. Just follow him. You don't know another grass to be greener. You don't know anything else. All you know is God. So what the enemy had to do is to convince Adam and Eve that they were missing something from God, like God was withholding something. So he says to them, if you touch this tree, does God not know? Not touch this tree. If you eat of this tree, does God not know that you will become a God in your own eyes? Now, immediately they become intrigued, like that's the best that he had. Or that's the best that he has for us. It's like he did with Jesus. If you kneel to me, I'll give you all this. Like, Jesus is basically saying, I have everything. And I'm going to prove that I have everything. You're going to do your very best, which is to kill my body. But in the spirit realm, I'm going to go and destroy and take away everything that you own. Then I'm going to rise in the physical body to show you that death has no victory. Satan can't offer that. This is why when a person is on the verge to believing that Jesus is alive or real, the enemy comes with a strategic attack to keep their soul in his atmosphere. This is why misery loves company. If you ever notice this, say like you have a group of people that talk about people. Don't matter if let's say they talk about people in a bad way, in a negative way. We would say they're miserable. Why they are miserable? Because they have agreed that one if not all is hurt or is hurting in their soul, which means they are separated from love. And they've chosen to stay, or fear has convinced them that they can't leave it. Jesus is always going to come and offer them a way out. They chose not to take it because it's an act of faith. You don't know the other side because you're inside a world of torment. So you'd be like, is this really real? Is Jesus really real? It's like really another dimension. So the miserable people, they're going to circulate inside this bubble. Their conversation can never be about good. It will destroy everything that's inside that their connection. It will destroy the connection. That's why they have to constantly be negative. It doesn't matter what is the subject. It has to be negative. It can try to be good, but this is where it is their